All right, in this video, we're going to walk through a design of a problem. The problem is a user wants to upload a file to S3. What we're going to do next is that we're going to wire up a Lambda function to respond to the put event whenever an object is placed in this bucket. We're going to manipulate this data to get the fully qualified path to each document, and then we'll stick it into Dynamodb. All right, so we'll start off here in IntelliJ, and I already have this the CloudFormation template to define our infrastructure. So I'm going to walk you through essentially what we need. So first of all, we'll start off with our simple bucket, and that's it. It's simply artifact document tracker storage. Type is AWS S3 bucket. All right. The next thing we'll look at here is our Lambda function. So we're using the AWS SAM template to do this. So this makes the definition of infrastructure a little bit more simpler. So you'll see here that this Lambda function is of type serverless function. We give it a description, which is basically storage process function, which responds to an S3 event and stores the file in DynamoDB. All right, so here are the properties for the Lambda function. We define the code URI, basically where our Lambda function code can be found. We have a handler, which is essentially the path or the specific method that our Lambda runtime will call in order to run our code. It's a Java 8 runtime, memory site 512. We're setting some environment variables. So we set the region. This is using the intrinsic function ref. And then the table name. We'll get to that in a second. We also set up an execution role, which we'll get to. And then this is the most important part. So we're setting up an event. So this Lambda function is going to respond to an event. And the event is basically an object created. So whenever somebody uploads an event in there, this Lambda function will be triggered. So let's take a look at the Dynamodb table. If we go over here. All right, so it's pretty simple. This is essentially just for the purpose of trying to illustrate how to do this. If this was a production environment, you probably wouldn't want to use a simple table, because with this definition, you essentially can only reference items by the primary key. Now in this case, the primary key is the URL. It's of type string, and the table name is document. So in the function, that's where, if I go back to our function here, that's where we reference the table, which we'll be calling. And then we'll look at the, I think there's a typo here, Lambda execution role. All right, so okay, cool. So we take a look at the execution role. It's also pretty simple. We were saying that we want the service principal Lambda to assume this role, and here are the things that this Lambda function can do. It can call get object. It can do these 4 operations for DynamoDB. It can also, of course, these 4 operations will be done on this table, right? So the table name document can create log groups, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So this defines our infrastructure for the Lambda code. All right, so now we're done defining the infrastructure. Let's actually go to code. So I'll go over here to source, to main, Java, and this is my Lambda function definition. So it's a really simple Lambda function. We have 2 environment variables which we defined. So we're using the system.getEnv to retrieve those properties. We're going to instantiate the Lambda logger. We're going to print the event. We have a method which essentially gets the document URL. So this handle request takes in an S3 event, and this S3 event is then passed to this method. So like I said, it's pretty straightforward. It's using the S3 APIs to grab an event record. It will parse an event record where I can get the bucket name, the source key, and then the region. So once that's done, essentially I format that to get the fully qualified URL for the document. That is then sent to the store document URL method, which uses a DynamoDB client to store it. So over here, we're gonna create a map of properties, which will basically have the URL and then the name. And then we're gonna we're gonna create a put item request and then put item. It's as simple as that. All right, so we're gonna do a quick demo of how this actually works. So I'm in S3, in the S3 console right now. I'm going to select a file from the file system. Let's click on add files, go to my downloads, and let's just pick any file here. Let's pick this file and I will click upload. All right, so now this file has been uploaded to S3. What I'm expecting is that the Lambda function will be triggered. So I'm going to go into my CloudWatch to see. All right, so I see that something request, the Lambda function was triggered. And here we are. So you'll see here that this is the receiving S3 event. It was the region US West 2. The event name is the object created as a put event. There's a couple of parameters as usual. The most interesting part here is the source key, which is this. That's the name of the file which I just put in the bucket. So my Lambda function is going to take all this information and then it's going to produce, if I will refresh this. Oh, let's go to 5 minutes. All right, so here is the output of my function. All right, so this is what we actually want to store in DynamoDB. So my Lambda function should have processed this event. It should have basically parsed to get this fully qualified URL for the document that I just uploaded. So let's jump into the DynamoDB console, and I'm going to quickly refresh. So you'll notice here now that we have actually 2 files, and this is the file that I just uploaded. So that's essentially how this works. In order to trigger a Lambda function via an S3 event, you will set up the infrastructure just as we did. You'll need to create a bucket. You'll need the Dynamodb table. You'll need a Lambda function. Once you have that infrastructure in place, the code is pretty straightforward. You'll need something which will be able to parse the S3 event, and then you'd probably want, for example, the URL that you want to store in DynamoDB, and then you just pass that into a method, say store document URL, and just call the DynamoDB client, call the put item with your put item request, and that's pretty much it. It's as simple as that.